Hey, what's up guys? How is everyone doing? So I've been playing Elden Ring Nightreign for about 15 hours now, something like that, around those lines. I've been playing with Steel, I've been playing with Cleve, with Canuck, and yeah, I've been having a blast with it actually. Surprisingly, I had very low expectations coming into Nightreign, but I'm really liking it so far actually. And it's mainly due to three reasons: Cleve, Steel, and Canuck. But aside from that, the game's actually fun, and the main reason why the game is fun is that it's challenging. It's not brain dead. It's not as brain dead as I was expecting. The first boss that you fight, the three-headed wolf, is pretty easy, but if you compare him to some of these other night bosses, some of these other night bosses are actually very challenging and very, very tanky. And so the fact that you have to try and the fact that you have to struggle during some of these boss fights, I think is what makes it a lot more interesting. And this is something you're going to see probably a lot of people that, beat Elden Ring by just summoning a bunch of phantoms complain about. Genuinely, I think the difficulty is probably one of the best thing about this game. And surprisingly, unlike in the network test, the status effects that you get overall, I mean, they're still good, but they're a lot more balanced. Actually, like, the status effects are probably more balanced in this game than in any of From Software game, like, surprisingly, like PvE wise at least. And so I was pleasantly surprised by how you could not, like, let's say, cheese a boss by just spamming bleed. I got at some point a seppuku windblade during one of my runs, and it did melt, but it still was not the type of melting that you'd see in the base game. So even though you could get like a very strong setup, it still wouldn't be like basically a free kill. Like purely out of that, I think you get a really good experience because it's challenging. Like the game is not without its flaws, but ultimately the night bosses are some of the best bosses that I've fought in a while. The field bosses and the first and second night bosses, they're not great. Like they're basically base game bosses and you cheese most of them fairly quickly unless you're stat limited. Like for instance, if you try to go in a more like late game quote unquote like area when you're under leveled, I mean it takes too long to kill them, so it doesn't really matter how good you are at the game. Like your DPS is going to be too low and time is of the essence in a game like this, so it's not really worth it. So this is like a big limiting factor. But if you fight bosses so at the level bracket, so to speak, that you're supposed to play them at, I mean, some of these bosses are a lot easier. I'm sure a lot of you will want to know, like, if I'm disappointed that there's no PvP in this game. But quite frankly, not at all, because PvP would be pretty atrocious in this game. Going into some of the negative, I think the thing I like the least about Nightreign is probably their attempt at implementing new mechanics. It's definitely better in the base Elden Ring game, like the whole super sprint, super jump. I think the most annoying part about the game in general is probably just having to jump around, because you constantly find yourself trying to jump around cliffs and around rocks, and quite frankly the game was clearly not made for it. Like it's very jank to just jump on rocks. So that was probably like the worst part of the game for me so far. It's very annoying to jump on the rocks because you're constantly doing it and it's kind of jank, like you miss some rocks and like half the time. You can tell that this game or like this terrain or this environment was not made for this sort of environment traversal, for instance. Another negative about Nightreign is probably the amount of content that it has. Still, 15 hours in right now. I've had a blast. We beat half of the bosses. Although granted, like a lot of time spent was beating some older bosses to beat the bosses for players that had not beaten them yet. So it's not like we spent all of these hours trying to finish the game in one go. We had to replay a bunch of bosses a few times, which is fine. I mean, it's part of the replayability. It's not like it was a core to rebeat the same bosses. No, even though we did some runs already beating the night bosses, like doing them again is still challenging and still fun. Another negative though is probably the what Nightreign doesn't have. Like, I really wish you had armor customization in this game, and that goes into a positive. The skins that they have in this game are actually better looking than the best Elden Ring armors, really. So, like, the fashion for the skins are really, really good, especially compared to the kind of mediocre fashion that there is in Elden Ring. But it's unfortunate that you can't, like, actually customize the armor you're wearing. You're pretty much like just delegated to just using a particular skin for your character. So this is definitely something that I wish that From Software did different. Just leverage all their armor library that they already have created and make something that's a little more, you know, in line with what From Software is good at, which is customization. From Software has always been good at character customization and character build, and I feel like this is what's lacking in Nightreign. And it's a bit strange that it's lacking, because Nightreign is a game that fits, it really fits this, like, it lends itself so well for customization, yet there's none. It's very strange. Like, I'm not really sure why they didn't do that. And it's not like it, you know, it would have made them have to spend a lot of time making assets. I mean, they already have all of it. That's probably, honestly, that's probably my main complaint about Nightreign, is the lack of customization in a game that would lend itself so well to it. Especially since the reward you get after successfully beating night bosses is very, very small. The relics you get, most of them are completely useless, and if you've watched any of the reviews prior to the game coming out, I've watched Oro's review. He mentioned in his review that some of the only relevant relics are the ones you get from defeating the night bosses, and I can confirm that. The relic system is very strange because most of them are completely useless, and there's no like RNG, so to speak, that's like significantly better than what you get from the night bosses, at least from what I've seen so far. So that's that. Something I really like about Nightreign, though, is the improvement that the game had compared to the network test, balance-wise. Like, for instance, you lose a lot more HP in the night fog, and that's definitely something that, like, they made more dangerous from the network test to the base game. The damage overall has been tuned down heavily from the network test to the base game. So all these little tweaks really elevate the game, in my opinion, to make it a lot more fun than the network test, where the network test, it was very brain dead. As soon as you found a bleed weapon, you were just shredding through everything. Now it's really not the case anymore, and I can't stress enough how happy I am that the game is not brain dead. I think that's probably some of the best and most important compliment that I could give to Nightreign. Because when you have a challenging game like that, it just elevates the experience so much more. Because the game would be completely irrelevant if it was not challenging. Because that's really the only thing that this game has. It's a game that, you know, doesn't have customization, doesn't have like story, doesn't have really progression. And so you're really left with this field experience, like combat and gameplay. And if it's not challenging, it has nothing. But it is. It is challenging. And you can have fun with your friends. And I think at the end of the day, I would actually recommend Nightreign for people to play it. Although, like, another negative, like, one thing that's really missing here, and especially in this game a lot more than the other Souls game, is crossplay. Like, really, like, this game should have had crossplay. I know it's From Software, I know they're like technologically kind of lagging behind, but man, this really should have had crossplay. There's no reason for a co-op focused game to not have crossplay in this day and age. Like, it's just completely missing here. This project clearly has a low ass budget, guarantee you, but I mean, they're gonna make bank. Like, this project is gonna make so much profit for them, like, for the amount of effort and the amount of content and the amount of development time that they have spent on this. Like, they sold so much for the amount of effort that it took for them. So this project is probably going to be like a huge business success all in all. So I hope that in next entries, the DLC, you know, you name it, maybe at some point, if they could implement the crossplay, I think that should be on their list of priority. If not for this game, maybe for the next one in that genre. That's another thing, right? The fact that Nightreign is somewhat successful, I think it's a good indicator that they should probably revisit this concept and probably put a lot more thought into it, a lot more effort into it. Because at the end of the day, if you take a game like Nightreign and you add a lot more content, a lot more unique bosses instead of reusing everything, even if you reuse the same bosses, you know, give them a new coat of paint, you know, mix in some of these animations and give some characters or some enemies a different model, they could absolutely recycle some of the content that they have, but in a more clever way than just simply copy and pasting it like what they have right here. There's definitely more that could be done here, for sure. And in the same vein, you know, it's clear that a game like this would benefit heavily, and I mean heavily, from a procedural system, like a modular procedural system where the map changes from run to run, and where it doesn't right now, like it's basically a static map. But in this sort of setting, you absolutely need to have the map change from run to run. I really think this is like a fundamental flaw that Nightreign will always have. It's not going to change, like I said, because it seems like the budget is very limited for this project. But in the future, I think it's primordial that they introduce some true map variations from run to run in order to make a setting like this more replayable, really. But yeah, I think the takeaway for me me. I like it. I really like it. Surprisingly, it's very decent. The fun factor is there, you know, in good part because it's really nice to play in good company, but also because the game is challenging. And so even though the game clearly has a lot of design flaws and, you know, it's far from perfect, it still holds up just because of that, in my opinion. Well, either way, guys, I'm sure a lot of people expected me to roast Nightreign, you know, like it's usually the case. Maybe it's because my expectations were lower this time, but you know, I'm always honest with what I think, so it's not like I'm always trying to hate on everything, like a lot of Redditors would have you believe. Like, genuinely, I think this game definitely has something going for it. I think it's worth buying. It's far from perfect, and there's a long-ass list of things they could improve on or bad design decisions like From Software always does. Although I feel like in this one, like the average scrub can see these design flaws a lot more than in the base game. So you're going to see a lot more people complaining about them. But at the end of the day, I think the game's worth it. I think the game is fun. And I would actually recommend that people get the game if that's something they're looking for. All right, well, either way, guys, hope you guys enjoy and catch you guys up next time. All right, take care, guys.